Hello and welcome to another Convos with Customers. My name is Eric Martin, joined today by Gary Lynn, co-founder of Explo. Gary, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, we're excited to learn more about how you're leveraging Vanta today. I guess first things first, I always like to ask folks to talk a little bit about their business. So like for those folks who aren't familiar with Explo, what do you guys do?
Yeah, for sure. So Explo builds customer-facing dashboards and analytics. So what that means is that as a business, if you wanted to be able to create an analytical suite to show to your customers, instead of building that out in-house from scratch, you could utilize Explo to do so essentially as an extension of your own product team. So an example with the Vanta case is that when you have all the kind of charts and graphs, when you log in to see, whether or not a test has been failing or succeeding, that could be actually built in like with Explo. And so your team doesn't have to actually manage that. And then there's a bunch of other kind of like configurability things and kind of like additional kind of nuances that I could talk about, but that's the highest level.
Interesting. So like we have an engineering and design team that like designed a homepage and this kind of test page where people can see kind of the output of all the tests we're running, documents that might be due. You're saying that like in another world, we could have used Explo to kind of display that actionable information.
Exactly. Yeah. And to kind of take that a step further, maybe like some subset of your customers care more about documents like testing than they care about, let's say, the other testing that exists. And, maybe we care about a very specific nuanced form of test that you guys have based on our use case. Explo would allow your customers to be able to make that configuration on some base dashboard you give them. And so they could be like, oh, hey, thanks, Eric, for giving me this homepage dashboard, but I actually care about this one chart you have at the very bottom. Let me bring it to the top, make that the main one, and then move things around based on guardrails that your team defines. And so then everyone can have like almost like a hyper specific view that's tailored to like their own business needs. And then you don't have to manage any of that. That can all be kind of like WYSIWYG done on their own.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's interesting because like we're thinking about, like kind of role-based access within Vanta now and just kind of trying to be a little more empathetic to certain Vanta users or admins need or care to see specific things. I'm going to put you on the spot. If you were using Explo for Vanta, what are specific things you'd want to see on your dash?
Yeah, so I think like for us in particular, a lot of the tests that we want to see from like the IT perspective and the people perspective are more important to us than for the documents.
Yeah.
And so like right now they're kind of like all jumbled together. What we would probably prefer is like we would want a chart specifically for like the IT stuff and specifically for the people stuff, because we actually have different folks logging into Vanta handling different parts of those types of tests. And so the person who's more in charge of documents, I want their like dashboard to be document specific. I want someone else on the team who's handling a lot of like the IT people stuff to like only see those things and not be like super concerned about all the document stuff they see and get like really nervous that there's so many things that we need to fill out when most of it's like not the biggest deal. And so I think that's kind of like the utility that we would love if Vanta was using Explo.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And that's these are great examples. And thank you for kind of sharing that. I think, TLDR is that at a minimum in a very near future, when folks log on, like they will see only the kind of tests and or documents that they own, unless you are effectively a master admin. So we're kind of doing that, but plug for Explo if you want kind of the added kind of functionality. You mentioned that you have any number of people that own kind of different kind of parts of this process. Like I'll ask kind of two questions here. One, kind of how big is your security and or compliance team? And then two, who are the people that have some responsibility in maintaining your compliance?
Yeah, I guess to be frank with the first question, we don't have like a dedicated security team today. I think there are people that wear this hat occasionally, but they also wear many other hats. And so the folks that log into Vanta the most would be myself and then someone else on our team whose name is Jacob. Jacob is a finance and ops associate. And so he helps us a lot with a lot of these things that come up. And so he's been assisting me with a lot of the Vanta work. So I was kind of like the main POC from the Explo side, managing a lot of the Vanta stuff. And so now he's kind of helped take a lot of the ownership from my plate, especially on a lot of the more important tests that we want to make sure are passing.
Nice. Makes sense. And just for listeners to provide a little more context, how many employees are at Explo today?
Yeah, we're 17 today. So we're small but mighty, but growing quickly.
Yeah. And I'll put you on the spot here. What hire do you think will be your first dedicated security hire?
Like number of hire from today?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think that we will have more security focused engineers probably in the, late 2023, but I
Yeah.
think that we won't have like a like CIO equivalent for like a little bit of time.
Yeah, nice. And to be fair, that was not to put you on the spot. You're in
No
good
worries. Yeah.
company. Yeah, most of our customers your size have not yet made that hire. It really depends on kind of the industry you're playing in, right? And kind of how top of mind this is, or how kind of business critical this function is per se. But in many ways, one of the value props of using Vanta is that you can hold off on making at least a dedicated compliance hire because we're helping you spread the work and get it done as efficiently as possible. So
Totally agree. I think that if we didn't have the knowledge base that we have that Vanta gives us, we would have needed to hire like a contractor or someone who like is way more informed in this kind of like knowledge space than we are today.
yeah. So like let's just go to your Vanta use case now. Like why did you guys sign up in the first place? You're 17 people, but you're already seemingly on top of it.
Yeah. So by the nature of the product, we interact with our customers' data quite closely. So we connect directly to our customers' databases or data warehouses, and then we query the information to then showcase charts and graphs on a dashboard, embedded wherever they want to embed Explo. Because of that, a lot of customers are very hesitant in allowing us to access their data because like the data, either whether it's because of HIPAA or GDPR, like actual like standard requirements, or because like they want to do their customers right and be very secure with their customers' data. Not having any of these like SOC 2, even a type 1, or even if you're like in the like motion to get your type 1, signals to them that you actually don't care about security or you don't think about security.
Yeah.
And so getting our SOC 2 type 1 way early on was extremely important to us, not even just to like make sure we have like all of our ducks in a row, but also to signal to our customers that security is extremely important to us. Even though we're a very small company, we want to make sure we do this right. And you can trust us with your data.
Nice. And what has the response been, from prospects, customers, partners alike, as you're able to communicate with them that like, hey, we have this thing?
Yeah. It's actually interesting. I would say very early on, a lot of folks were like, oh, that's awesome. Like they were like surprised, right? Because like a company at that point was maybe like 4 or 5 people. And it's like, oh my God, you guys already have a type 1, or oh my God, you guys are already in the process of getting a type 1. That's like awesome. Like I have this level of trust that I didn't have before for you, or like I have this level of respect. And so that was really good to allow us to kind of build a certain level of reputation with very early design partners that we were working with. At the kind of scale we're at now, it's almost a check the box.
Yeah.
People want to see that we have, SOC 2 type 2. People want to know we're HIPAA certified. People want to know all these things. And it's almost kind of like the reverse, where if we didn't have some of these things, I don't think a fair amount of our customers today would actually engage with us.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And I mean, we have certainly seen that true, right? Over the last kind of 6 years, where we've gone from the world where, a CISO at a large business might kind of feel for a co-founder of a 4-person company and say, getting a SOC 2 is a lot of work, fill out this questionnaire, to now the world where not only are they kind of expecting you to have a SOC 2, but 4-person companies are expecting other 4-person vendors that they work with to also have a SOC 2.
And I almost wonder if that's because it's easier to get a SOC 2 now. So it's almost like because the bar to get it is lower, everyone expects folks to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go maybe a little bit more into the product. Are there certain kind of like features or functionality that you find you or your kind of financial ops person kind of leveraging or finding unique value in on the, maybe not the day-to-day, but kind of the week-to-week, month-to-month?
Yeah, I think honestly, this might be like a super trivial thing to say, but one of the most valuable features is like the email feature. And when we get alerted when certain things are suddenly like failing for whatever reason, because transparently, I think the way that we envision the operating model with Vanta is that you kind of get it into a good state and then it kind of like a steady state. And the best case scenario is that you actually never log in. And it means that like all of like your security systems are set up in a way that like are maintained and secure, so to speak, or hitting the like, I don't know, the bar of whatever it means to be like satisfactory. But in this case, like whenever we get an email, it's like, oh my God, we got to like address something immediately. And that's kind of like the trigger for us to kind of hop in, see what's up, make the changes, and then like get back into like a great state.
Interesting. So I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but within the product, there's new functionality that really is a demonstration of empathy for customers, which is to say, when a test fails, you can be as kind of custom as you'd like with the notifications and alerting that we send to you. And we'll show you in your Vanta dashboard that the test is failing. We also now give you the opportunity to set SLAs for how quickly or slowly you kind of need to fix every type of test in Vanta. And so what ends up happening is, I don't know if you know this, but historically, if you had a test fail, even for a day, when an auditor was kind of looking at kind of the information relevant to that kind of observation period, they'd see that blip. Now, they're not going to see that blip until you've kind of been failing it beyond your kind of pre-approved SLAs. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, basically now, like what that'll look like effectively is, your team will get the alert. You'll kind of have set the kind of time constraints by when you need to get these things done, but the auditor is not explicitly going to see that the thing failed right away if they don't explicitly need to see that.
That's awesome. I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I think I saw some form of that actually earlier this week. And it's really cool because at the end of the day, like the auditors will ask you a question about like a little blip and it's like, oh yeah, it's like not a big deal. Don't worry. And then you can kind of bypass that entire interaction.
Exactly. Well, I guess last question I always like to ask folks is like, what should we build next?
That is a great question. So I think that it's really interesting. When we first started using Vanta, it was like 2020, and we were just doing SOC 2. Then we were asked to be part of like the HIPAA beta program, and then we were like pulled into HIPAA, and then now we like have HIPAA fully, and then like we have GDPR added as well. I think the biggest thing that's interesting to me is that given the nature of the business, the goal is to get all of the security accreditations as like fast as possible. Yeah. I don't necessarily even know the space of all the accreditations that would be valuable to get. But what I realize is that within the Vanta instance, a lot of the things that we're actually trying to solve for have crossover amongst SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR, et cetera. It would be really interesting for me to know that given all the things that I've done already, how close am I to other security accreditations? And, that would, be an easy upsell for you all as well. It's like, okay, if you just did like a few extra things, you can get this other accreditation, or if you have to do, a month's work, you can get this other accreditation. And maybe that second accreditation is actually worth the month's work and the upsell, whatever it is. I think that's actually would be super valuable because as someone who's not a security expert, I don't know what is the most valuable thing for me to get. And I also don't know how close we are to some of these other ones. And so once we added GDPR to our Vanta instance and we realized how close we were, it was almost like we should have added it earlier. So we could have got ahead of some of the things and just like been GDPR compliant way earlier.
Yeah, this is good feedback. And I hate to play a spoiler, but actually, if you log into Vanta and you click on the compliance tab, you will see all of the other frameworks we support and your % progress to them. But I think what you're saying here is interesting, which is to say, like, we'll show you your percentage kind of progress towards these things, but that is like the only level of detail. I don't tell you explicitly like, hey, Gary, you're 47% of the way to this new thing. The main things that you're missing are A, B, and C. And that we expect that on average to take this much time. So yeah, it's really good feedback.
No, appreciate that. I actually haven't seen this tab before, so I'm glad we're at least on some similar wavelength as well.
There we go. Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time. Any final words before we drop?
No, I think we covered most of it. Appreciate y'all inviting me to this. I think it was really fun and glad I got to share some experiences that I had with Vanta and also tell them about the Explo story too.
Awesome. Well, hey, Gary, appreciate you being a Vanta customer, and thanks again. Talk to you later.
Appreciate it. See you later.
Yeah.